Stephen Miller might be the most morally reprehensible person in Donald Trump's administration, which is why it is so nice that he has had such a bad week. But unfortunately, he's decided to make it all of our problem by going on air and losing his mind in an insane meltdown for two main reasons. The first is that his boss continues to get humiliated as his illegal attempts to attack our country get struck down in court. The other is because he's dealing with some issues with his wife and has been mocked senselessly for it. We're going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we can get into Stephen Miller's on-air meltdown, which is just humiliating, we need some context with what he's so upset about, and it can be best described by Jamie Raskin talking about Trump's attack on the judiciary right here.
Well, I regard it very much within the prism of what we've been dealing with over the last month, which is an intense assault on judicial independence. They have been disobeying federal court orders systematically. They have incurred criminal contempt findings in the courtroom of Judge Boasberg, a conservative Republican judge. They have been demanding the impeachment of judges who rule against the lawlessness of the Trump administration. There are now more than 90 preliminary injunctions and temporary restraining orders against the chaos that's been unleashed on the country by the Trump administration. And now they're arresting judges. And the first felony criminal charge brought against Judge Hannah Dugan in Wisconsin is interfering with a legal proceeding, which is essentially what they've been doing all along. What Judge Boasberg is about to hold them in criminal contempt for, and has found that there is probable cause for criminal contempt, is that they deliberately ignored and defied his order not to take off in those airplanes headed for El Salvador and not turning the airplanes around. So on the logic of this arrest of Judge Dugan, all of the people in the Trump administration who participated in defying that order by Judge Boasberg themselves could be arrested for interfering with a legal proceeding and perhaps other criminal charges like kidnapping, as you were suggesting before.
It is Donald Trump's sole objective, it seems, in this presidency to attack any institution that takes power away from him, or not takes power away from him, but puts a check on his power, as is our system of government. So he set his sights on the judiciary, attacking, arresting, trying to undermine judges. Currently, he's in contempt of court, but Donald Trump doesn't really seem to care. He is going to malign anyone who stands up to his illegal actions as some radical left judge, even when those judges were appointed by him and his first term. And that was a tough reality that Stephen Miller was confronted with when he went on air to try to attack these judges and defend Trump. But before we get into that meltdown, I want to start with the other reason, like I said, that he's so upset, and it's that he's getting mocked over his maybe little marital issues right now. Dems taunt Stephen Miller over wife leaving with Musk. Democrats have little to be giddy about these days, but they took pleasure in taunting White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller as Elon Musk made his White House exit with Miller's wife at his side. The official X account of the Democrats had a spicy post on Friday where they simply tagged Stephen Miller's handle and included an image of an empty chair in a corner of what looked like a hotel room. Now, this post meant to imply that Stephen Miller maybe liked to observe certain activities between a certain someone, Elon Musk, and a certain other someone, his wife, but that's neither here nor there. The Post retweeted the Daily Beast's report that Miller's wife, Katie, a Doge advisor and spokesperson, was also on her way out of the Trump administration to work for the tech billionaire full-time. But Musk also got pushback from Miller's husband as he decided to criticize the president's big beautiful bill as a disappointment on his way out the door. Musk told CBS News in an interview this week that the massive legislation undermines the work of Doge and balloons the deficit. Miller fired back in a lengthy X post where he argued the bill could not cut discretionary spending due to Senate rules. He also insisted the Congressional Budget Office was wrong that it increases the deficit, dismissing the analysis as an accounting gimmick. So it seems like Stephen Miller is kind of taking it from all sides. I don't know if that's something he likes. I'm not going to make a joke about it. We're not going to make a joke about it, but he's dealing with that. And clearly it's bubbling up inside of him because he was very angry, as he usually is, but a little bit more so when he appeared on CNN today to try to defend Donald Trump's breaking of the law. And we can see that meltdown. It was just humiliating right here.
We saw whenever a judge rules against this administration, you say they're going rogue. Do you think a judge should just rubber stamp what your White House does? If not, what checks and balances do you think should be in place for this White House?
It is not the job of a district court judge to perform an individual green light or red light on every single policy that the president takes as the head of the executive branch. Just think about the premise baked into your question, respectfully, Pam. You're saying that when the American people elect a president of the United States of America,
I'm not saying
well, it's the implication, who is the sole head of the executive branch. Well, let me finish. I will answer the question happily. But look, when you have these kinds of lazy assumptions built into questions, it makes it hard to have a constructive dialogue.
What is a lazy assumption? I said you all had to win.
You said is it my expectation?
I'm speaking because now you're putting...
You said, is it my expectation? It's not just you. It's the whole media. In other words, when you
I know
hear
you
a
want
sentence
to loop
like...
us on. It is a completely fair question. You say judges who rule against the White House
and I will
go rogue.
gladly answer it. When you say, do we think district court judges should rubber stamp each action? There is a premise that is built into that is absurd. The president is the sole head of the executive branch. He's the only officer in the entire government that's elected by the entire American people. Democracy cannot function. In fact, democracy does not exist at all if each action the president takes, foreign policy, diplomatic, military, national security, has to be individually approved by 700 district court judges. That's democracy. So if there's 15 communist crazy judges on the court, that each of them as a team working together can block and freeze each and every executive action. Joe Biden was allowed by that same court system
Some of them
to
are
import
Trump
20
judges,
million
though.
illegal foreigners.
Why did Trump put these crazy communist judges, as you call them, on the bench?
You heard President Trump himself say that the Federal Society and Leonard Leo has created a broken system for judicial vetting. And God knows this time around, we are not going to be using... So does that mean he doesn't support picking Amy Coney Barrett for the Supreme Court? What it means is simply this and nothing more. We're not going to be using the Federal Society to make judicial nominations at all going forward. But let me tell you about these rogue judges. This is the most litigated issue over the last 10 years. Over the last 10 years, whether or not to deport the foreigners who invaded our country illegally. That is the most litigated issue. You want a democracy in this country? When Americans vote, when they cry out and they beg for a president to come and save them from this invasion, and some district court judge in San Francisco or Manhattan or Los Angeles tries to shut it down and shield these foreigners from deportation, while the courts did nothing to stop Joe Biden and his administration and his officers, the Mayorkas, from overseeing this invasion. And
again, these people will always lie on behalf of Donald Trump, and they'll distort reality however fits their narrative. If a judge disagrees with Donald Trump, it's not because he broke the law. It's because the judge is a radical leftist. If Donald Trump appointed the judge, well, then it's because the deep state snuck him through. But if the deep state didn't sneak them through, then it's because Donald Trump was fooled, but not really, because it's someone else's fault. I don't really know how the logic follows. Didn't Donald Trump drain the swamp? How is the deep state still sneaking through judges? No one knows at this point. They're all lies. It's all a mess. And clearly Stephen Miller is a little upset about it. And yeah, I do take a lot of pleasure in mocking him because he's a terrible person. So I think we're going to continue to do that and continue to call out the illegal activity of this administration we see perpetrated by Stephen Miller and all of his sleazebags, to steal a word from Trump. But Jen Psaki broke that all down, describing how unpopular Donald Trump's illegal deportation plan is in this clip right here.
Free Dylan, free Dylan, free Dylan, free Dylan, free Dylan, free Dylan, free Dylan.
That was the scene at the Tweed Courthouse in Lower Manhattan tonight, as the United Federation of Teachers joined state and local officials in protesting for the release of this Bronx high schooler named Dylan. Dylan is an asylum-seeking migrant from Venezuela. He goes to a school called Ellis Prep in the Bronx and works as a delivery driver to help support his family. And last week, he became the first New York City public school student to be arrested by ICE since Trump's second term began. All week, we've seen protest after protest for his release. And last night, 23 people were arrested at a protest marking 1 week since Dylan's arrest. You can see the footage there. The people of New York are clearly outraged, and they're not even the only ones. I mean, this is Kennett, Missouri. It may be about as different from New York City as a place can be. While we don't have election results from the city itself, it is the largest city in Dunklin County, which voted for Trump last year by more than a 4-to-1 margin. So you would think if anywhere in the country would support Trump's immigration policies, it would be a place like Kennett, Missouri, right? But when this woman, a longtime resident of Kennett, a woman who goes by Carol, a waitress at the local diner, a mother to 3 kids, an active member of the local church, when Carol got arrested by ICE earlier this week, the residents were shocked. One resident telling the New York Times, quote, "I voted for Donald Trump, and so did practically everyone here, but no one voted to deport moms. We were all under the impression we were just getting rid of the gangs, the people who came here in droves." This is Carol. The diner that Carol worked at, John's Waffle and Pancake House, is normally closed on Tuesdays, but last Tuesday they stayed open. They called it Carol Day. The staff and their families wore shirts that read, "Bring Carol home." You can see them right there in the photos. All of the proceeds from every single meal that day went to a fundraiser for Carol. They filled every seat and raised nearly $8 grand that way. But get this, there were more people who wanted to help than the diner even had seats. So they put out a donation box for people who couldn't get a seat in the diner, and they raised nearly another 12 grand that way. On every table between the jelly packets and the ketchup was a petition to bring Carol home. Hundreds of locals have signed it. Look, the Trump administration is reportedly aiming to deport 1 million people this year.
I always come back to what AOC said about Donald Trump's deportation plan because I find it so important in this moment. It is not a popular plan. It is not a popular agenda. We are just not working hard enough to make it unpopular. Now we have. Democrats have spent a lot of time calling out Donald Trump for deporting, for detaining, for disappearing U.S. citizens. And every time we make a news cycle out of it, as we should, the plan gets more unpopular. So it's not that Democrats should just run away from this issue, become more conservative, abandon our values, or do something like that or along those lines. It's no, stand up for what you believe is right, stand up for what we know is right, and make the case. Just make the case. The Democrats who have been most successful since Donald Trump has been elected were the Democrats and are the Democrats who go out and speak their truth. The Chris Murphys, the Ro Khannas, the Jasmine Crockett's, AOCs, and Bernie Sanders. These are people who are showing Democrats how to lead right now. We need more people to be just like them. We're going to be talking about that on the show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.